All right, that's Keith Wood speaking last night on Wednesday Night Rugby with Dave McIntyre, who is actually going to be in the commentary position for TV3 this weekend alongside Alan Quinlan.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Six Nations debut, big day.
Big day, yeah, big audience. It's going to be nervous, but I'm excited by it. Six Nations always gets me excited when I played there as a player. I grew up as a kid watching it, so it's a big start for Ireland. Our record in Paris is not good.
No.
I think we'll have all this optimism going there this weekend, and the naysayers probably saying, oh, we've the green goggles on, thinking that we're going there with a lot of confidence and self-belief, but we have that confidence and self-belief, and on paper I think we're a better side, more organised side, more structure. But then when you look at the results, Ger,
yeah, so how often were you on those squads that went over? It was like, oh, we're really good, and then something happens?
Probably in my time it wasn't. Dricko's, the team in 2000 when Dricko got the 3 tries, that was probably a big turning point for confidence, self-belief. The provinces winning in France. We won there for the first time at Munster in '98.
Yeah.
Then Leinster started winning, different teams, Ulster getting results there. So it became kind of a monkey off the back, if you like, and that kind of translated into the national side.
There were still games like...
there was a ton of optimism going there several times, and we came away short.
The year that... one of the years that we should have won the Grand Slam under Eddie, where I think it ends with the Shane Horgan try in the corner against England, but that year against France they were like 40-0 up at half time, and we get it back to 40-33 in the second half. Did you play in that game?
No, I didn't. No, unfortunately I was only watching from the stands. Yeah, there was a few performances there. I remember in '98 I was on the A team and we played in Brittany on the Friday night. Then we went on Saturday to the Stade de France. It was probably relatively new at that stage, and the expectation even then in a lot of our minds, and probably the team that went out to play that day, was, look, keep the score down,
yeah,
because there was so many hidings there. The team lost 18-16 that day. Should have won the game.
There's a missed kick by Humphreys.
Yeah, and then in 2000, as I say, when the team beat France there, when you kind of have that muscle memory to go back to, and you get that monkey off your back, it changes. So the mentality changed, but the team still went there a lot and lost. Even in 2007 at the World Cup, we struggled against Namibia and Georgia, and then went to Paris thinking, you know, if we get it right, we'll be close enough. I think we lost 25-3.
Yeah.
They just have
never
this,
close though, like that.
No,
game.
They just have this ability to, even against the odds, so that makes me nervous about Saturday. So 2 years ago, we beaten 10-9, went there with a team again. France were in a bit of disarray, shambles, no consistency in selection. I think it was Novez's first game, and you think, we're going to win this game, we lose 10-9, and it was a frustrating game. You look at the game afterwards, the opportunities, the mistakes. That's the only way France can win on Saturday, I think, by frustrating Ireland, stopping them playing. So for me, it's Ireland's to lose. But like I said, 1948, 1952, 1972, 2000 and 2014.
Not a great record.
Are the 5 times in 70 years.
Yeah.
But I think in saying that, Ger, the ones probably before 2000, we didn't really expect to win.
Yeah.
Even though there was some great Irish sides went there, but there was some Irish sides went there and got walloped as well. So that makes me nervous.
Is this the worst you've ever seen a coaching ticket for France?
It's a shambles. I think, I was reading Frano's piece in the Indo this morning. I didn't know this. I think they've had 103 different combinations in a 10-year period at 9 and 10, which is amazing. And that's what it tells you. So even trying to select the French side, you just think, where's the consistency in selection? Most of their team are pretty inexperienced and young. They've some very good players now, but the problem is consistency in selection, and then it goes down to coaching. So Laporte never liked Novez. They always had a bit of rivalry. Since Laporte took over as president, the rumours and the talk were that, you know, there was more pressure going to come on Novez, and they only won 3 games in 2017 out of 11. So the return is bad. If they keep chopping and changing, it's not going to get any better from on their day. But I think on their day is kind of gone, because, you know, we relate France to big wins against the All Blacks in World Cups and a team that can play outstanding at home if they get it right. But it's too often now that it's if they get it right. And the results in the championship have proved that.
Yeah.
They're 9th in the world. I grew up thinking France were incredible. Next to the All Blacks, you just probably loved watching the French team. Sella, Saint-André, Blanco, these guys, just incredible players. The way they played and big bruising forwards that intimidated you. Now, and I think the problem is, and we all know this, is the disconnect between club versus country and the amount of overseas players in France.
Yeah.
It's just...
Well, let's stick the team up, the French team. This was L'Equipe's probable team from during the week. You might, obviously there's a couple of paragraphs in French there. I'm not going to ask you to translate those. Tell us a little bit about some of the names.
Well, Palais said the full-back. I actually, he plays with Cass. He looked really good in Thomond Park. There was just something about him. You know, you see a player and you say, he looks good.
Yeah.
He looks controlled, measured. Vakatawa has that X factor. He can be outstanding with Racing. Chavancy, Lameret, you know, two solid players. Lameret plays really well. He was with Cass before. He's with Clermont now, very powerful in the centre. Thomas, Teddy Thomas on the wing, again, has that bit of X factor. But you want the one that's probably going to, everybody's going to be talking about is Jalabert. He
19-year-old
played under-20s for France last year. He was on the under-20 team. He's only played a handful of games for Bordeaux. But Brunel was the one who played him in his first top 14 start on November the 4th. So the November internationals are going on, and the week before he starts at 10. Now, he played at full-back a few times before that. So he obviously sees him as an unbelievable talent. And maybe he's investing. Maybe he's trying to say, right, I want to get a young guy in here, stick him in and keep him there. But he's very, very inexperienced.
He's got a step off both feet. He's got a big boot. He's got a really good goal kicking. It's the type of thing that, like...
Run. He seems to have the full package. Like, he's a brilliant modern-day footballer.
Yeah.
International rugby, pressure. He could be outstanding. If he gets on the front foot and France, the crowd get going, you know, he could do something special. So I think Joe Schmidt and Andy Farrell would be very aware to try and put pressure on him.
Do you do that? Do you put that pressure on him by keeping the game really tight and very ultra structured early on, so that there's no opportunity for him just to pick a ball up and go on a run? Or do you do it by physically imposing yourself and go, right, kill him in the first 10 minutes, lads. That's what we're going to do.
Yeah,
whatever you do.
Like, you know, if I'm in the dressing room and thinking, we've got to get at him, we've got to put him under pressure. But if he kind of responds to that, and maybe he is a physical kind of player, he likes to bit of contact, and he's confident. I think the best way to do that is get your scrum and line out right. So if you do that, Ger, then you have Aki running in that 10 channel, you have Henshaw coming in that 10 channel, maybe Stander getting a few runs at him.
Yeah.
So you want to try and tie him in more than, you know, physically.
So you don't go out of your way to do it.
Yeah, so, and then get in his face. So Andy Farrell, I think he's done an outstanding job with Ireland. He'll be trying to get the defensive line up really quickly, get in his face, make him kick, and try and hold back two in the backfield, so that when he does kick, that Ireland gather the ball, whether it's Earl, Stockdale, Carney, that access works well in the backfield, but particularly off line out, because I think, and that's the intriguing thing, because our set pieces 2 years ago, particularly the scrum, struggled a lot. So when you look at Slimani, I think on his day he's world class as a tight end. He's very, very powerful.
He's a big guy.
Poira, the Bordeaux loose head as well. Garado, they have a bit of experience and a bit of grunt there.
Yeah, so it's not. It's like we're the assumption so far in the pre-match analysis has been they've sacked their head coach. The figurehead of French rugby has been involved in this massive scandal. It's a shambles. Their teams are kind of completely in Europe made up of foreigners anyway. We should go and blitz them. That's been the analysis.
That's the talk, and it's
dangerous. You go through it player by player, and it's like, well, actually, he plays at a very high level. That guy's really good. There's a second row club partnership, which is, you know, they're going to have familiarity, and they've experience in the right places, and they've got these genius young tyros potentially in the bits where they need to infect some new enthusiasm. Not really the straightforward. Let's go and beat them by 7 points.
It's a known and unknown. What we know is that they are relatively inexperienced and that it's difficult to go to Paris. The unknown is how they're going to play. If they click and gel, I think it just doesn't make it's not realistic, I don't think, for them to gel well together, because historically in the Six Nations, all teams are a little bit slow out of the blocks because of lack of preparation time and game time. So you just don't know what you're going to get. But on paper, as you said, there's some very good players there. There's no doubt about that.
Wayne Ryan says by text, or on Twitter, sorry, we lost to Scotland last year, first game up, and I remember we were very confident then. I think this is going to be much harder than people are predicting. Great show. Thanks, Wayne.
It's a very good point, because, but I actually think that will be benefit to us.
You'd hope so.
Because you think the team meeting this week will be, let's make sure that we're not still on the bus that was late mentally. We've got to start well. Most of these players, the bus was late.
The Scots.
We were late out of the blocks. The Scotland came out, blitzed us early on, and then the second half we were brilliant. We upped the pace, the intensity, and got ourselves right back in the game. But I think they'll speak about that. So you don't want the French getting any.
No. They definitely. They all this week. They promised that it has not come up in conversation once. Marielle.
Well, look, the players themselves will probably drive it as well and say, look, we've got to start well here.
Yeah.
I think we've so many leaders in the group, Ger, that they'll be experienced enough. They've been in a lot of situations before away in France, playing with Ireland, playing with their provinces, that they know that if they allow this French team settle, get a couple of scores early on, a couple of penalties, if Jalabert gets maybe 2 penalties early on and France are 6-0, he's settled, he's nicely into the game, the crowd are going, oh, hold on a minute here, we've started well. So what you want is, and sometimes it's not necessarily on the scoreboard, it's how Ireland physically kind of get into the game and control it, and their strategy around their exit patterns and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when you play France, it's physical. So I think, and I played against Brunel's teams a few times at Perpignan. They're going to be physical, they're going to be abrasive, and that's their only chance. They've got to get in their faces.
Is there a general sense of disdain in France around this team? Will the crowd be right behind them from the start, kind of with their backs to the wall? Does that bring the best out of the French crowd, or is there just kind of a sense of, God, not this crowd again? It's going to take a few years for us to get back to the top table. There's
a sense of frustration. Any ex-players I've spoken to, the opinion this week was they just don't want to talk about this French team. They're frustrated. The crowd are. Now, sometimes there's an unrealistic pressure, and they don't look at the facts and figures. They just want France to win. They're a very proud nation. They're passionate about their rugby. But there's a certain level of unrest there about how you can get rid of a coaching ticket. Even though the results were poor, how are you going to get any consistency if you just keep chopping and changing? It's like in football. Manager's in for a couple of months, he's gone.
It feels like Laporte wants to do this job as well as the other job. It's like, could I just, or maybe I'll just get my guy in. Like, they obviously have a good relationship, Laporte and Brunel.
Yeah, that's why he was assistant coach for a number of years under Laporte. So Laporte obviously trusts him, and he wants someone in there that he can trust. But the problem, Ger, in French rugby is there's interference. So Laporte will be in his ear, pick this fella, pick that fella, if something goes wrong. The Irish coach, Joe Schmidt, any of the Irish coaches have a rugby board and a rugby committee that they report, and they let him know what the plan is and what the structure is, and if there's a bad result, he's probably got to go in there and explain what's going on and stuff like that. But there's be a fair bit of interference now with Laporte, but we'll have to wait and see. I think from an Irish point of view, is it good that we're playing them first, or is it very dangerous? It's a bit of both.
Yeah.
Because if you saw France for 2 games and maybe they were struggling, you'd see what way they're playing. You're just expecting the unknown a little bit here. But I think structure and game plan, hopefully, if Ireland can execute that. But I think the mistake that they may make is, I don't think they will make, you've got to go and play there. You can't kind of sit back, and I think they're vulnerable, France. So if they start well and keep the pace into the game, and you just look at the players we have, Murray, Sexton, the forward pack.
Yeah.
There's certainly opportunities there.
Like, even in terms of experience, like not having Pickmold involved in that squad, it seems like a blunder, doesn't it? And I know half the squad is under 25, so it seems to be building towards, and we kind of discussed it yesterday, not even towards the next World Cup, but towards the home World Cup.
Yeah, like, you're talking about picking on form, and that's the kind of terminology we hear a lot. Pickmold is a form player. He's a big game player. He gets over the gain line, and you can build kind of strike plays off someone like that. But to be fair, Gordon Laurie and Kamara. Kamara's outstanding. He was, I think if you remember that Stade Francais Munster game a couple of years ago, he got a brilliant try. He's a really powerful athlete, but you think someone like Picamoles will give you that direction and give you that power over the gain line. So that's not a form selection, that's a personality selection. But I think Brunel he's kind of got rid of some of Novese's go-to guys.
Yeah.
Like Fiku is not there either in the centre, which is a little bit surprising. Fofana's injured, which is, he's a superb player. But
yeah, Pastor's obviously banned for being a homophobe. The role of Bonaire and all this, right? So you were saying outside, Bonaire has had no coaching experience, but he is one of these totemic figures in French rugby, kind of like a Paul O'Connell figure in some ways, where he's a pig. When you're playing against him, I can only imagine that, like, you just know that you're going to come up against him and he's not moving. And if the ball is being spoiled, when the bodies are unpeeled, he's going to be at the bottom of it.
Yeah, Julien Bonaire is someone that I had massive respect for, and I would have called probably short lineouts from Munster when we played in Europe, and we played Bourgoin a few times. And then he went to Clermont and we played them a number of times. And I just remember we had a kind of 4 and 5+1 lineouts where I'd be at halfback and I'd step in different places on our short lineouts. And he was the one guy who used really drive me demented because he was so up to date with the lineouts.
Right, so he would know what you were going to do.
Yeah, so he was literally watching me where I would go. So I had to kind of try and go to the next level and say, I've got to second guess him, I've got to confuse him, and I've got to dummy to the front and let Paul call it to the back on Paul, or dummy to the back and call it on Donica in the front. And he just was always
right
on my case. And what it told me was that he was just, for a French guys to be that into lineouts and that kind of intelligent around lineout stuff. And then he called all the lineouts for France and the club teams he played. So it's kind of like Paul O'Connell stepping straight out of, like, he's gone a year and a bit now, Bonaire, a year and a half, 2 years. But like, he hasn't forgot how to run a line out. So he'll talk to the French players, he'll have that organisation.
With most people, you would say you're not really allowed to do this anymore because the game moves so quickly, there's so much work involved. But when you're in that role and you have that position, you're kind of an auxiliary coach anyway.
Yeah, for sure. And I've said it a few minutes ago, how are you going to get at Jalabert at 10? Line out, hopefully. But Bonaire will have Vaha Mahina is the bigger, stronger guy, but Aturia is a very kind of athletic second row who plays with Clermont. He's only one cap, but he'll be putting a bit of, and Kamara is very tall, Gordon, Laurie, they'll be, throwing them up around the back of the line and trying not for Ireland to win ball towards the middle or the tail of the line out to get those strike plays going. So I think Bonaire, even though he's very little coaching experience, I think it could be a big bonus for them.
Yeah.
And he'll certainly, the players will know him well.
I think that's the other thing, is like there's a kind of a legendary status benefit. Like,
absolutely, yeah.
It's not supposed to matter. Like, all sports, good coach, good player, automatic, not real thing. But actually, as part of a coaching ticket, having somebody like that walk in and go, well, this
He's been running the line out now for probably 15 years as a player, and if you're a line out caller and a player, you're effectively coaching anyway. You're choosing the line outs, you're calling where to go, you're telling guys, wake up, be on the ball, similar to
wasn't he the coach of the team who reached the World Cup final in 2011 anyway? Or one of them. Yeah, but but they sacked the coach midway through.
And they got to
you
the
just
World
sit
Cup
in the meetings
final.
there, Mark, and look pretty, and we'll run this team here. That was kind of...
Yeah, so Bonaire is someone that I think will actually be a bonus to them, and even though he has no coaching experience, but...
Does that mean the people in that position are naturally going to become better coaches?
Whoever's calling the line out.
If you have a leadership role on the field, it's kind of natural. It's like an out half, Ronan O'Gara. He's probably running a backline for so long, he's picking the backline moves. If you're one of these dominant leaders in a team, it does give you more of a natural progression where you've got to, it's like you just step outside, but you're still giving the same messages. And you have to have an eye for it. So running a backline or picking backline moves or stuff, you have to have an eye for that stuff. And the line-out is the same. I was obsessed with line-outs. So you think, that doesn't mean I'll be a good coach because it's maybe the messages you got to give. But I think when you just have one specific role, like run the line out, which Bonaire will probably be doing, Bruno will be doing the scrum, and okay, they might mix and match stuff with the forward pack, but he's been doing that for so long. So I think if you're in that role and you've got a result with teams you've played with that you've been in, you're obviously given decent messages, so it's about tailoring them right. And again, it doesn't automatically mean you'll have success. It depends on the personalities you're coming in. How willing are they to listen and learn? So I think that's why you mentioned a combination of a little bit of consistency with the 2 second rows. They play together, so that will help them a little bit. And Laure and Gordon have played, you know, they've been involved for the last couple of seasons. Camera, you know, a real X-factor player, someone who can just, he can run quicker than most backs.
Yeah.
Offloading game as well. So it just depends how he puts all that together, Bonaire.
A couple of quick comments. Kieran O'D says, everyone says the worst French ticket and lack of experience, but it's still France. Hope we're not building ourselves up for a fall. We should hammer France using logic and sporting form, but you can never take a team with nothing to lose lightly. The French may step up out of spite. Let's talk about Ireland, because
that's exactly what we're saying, isn't it?
Yeah. That's the only way that this happens. With Scotland last year, at least Scotland were on a progression, and they were definitely getting better, and they'd been well coached for a couple of years, and you know, it looked like, and their club teams had started to put some level of consistency together, and they had good players who were in form. With this, it's really about, like, it's the new coach, and it's also the potential that they're playing from muscle memory. The Ireland team looks like it's been agreed, certainly by the journalists. They've picked the same team, that the everybody seems to have got the same information, that it is going to be the back three of Stockdale, Earls and Kearney. Not entirely surprising. And that James Ryan gets the nod in the second row and Cian Healy starts. So about as predictable an Irish team as you would have expected?
Yeah, obviously James Ryan is someone who impresses Joe Schmidt a lot. Again, relatively inexperienced, 3 caps. First big start in November. He had played in the tour last summer. I remember watching this guy a couple of years ago playing under 20s, and I said, geez, he's got unbelievable energy, and he's abrasive, makes a tackle, bounces back up off his feet, makes another tackle, makes a carry, just full of energy and great enthusiasm, and a good footballer. I was surprised because of Toner's experience and maybe what happened 2 years ago, where it's got quite physical. You remember Maestri hitting Sexton in the back of the head with the elbow, Garado and Rob Kearney. They were out to kind of ruffle up the Irish feathers a little bit.
They broke Heaslip's back as well with the... Was that game?
That was Pape in Dublin. No, that was maybe a year or so before. But you're going to get that physical reaction from the French. So James Ryan has shown and proven, and he's probably thrown himself about in training, and that's why he's in there. Himself and Henderson, certainly a partnership for the future. They're so young, and so he'll it's a big test for him. It's a big test for him, I think. There's no doubt about it. That's a surprise. Josh van der Fleer is not a surprise for me, mainly, and it probably goes against Levy a little bit, because I think he's an outstanding player as well, but because you go back to Exeter when he comes off the bench in Dublin here, Joe's thinking, I want that after 50 minutes again. Whereas I don't know if Van der Fleer is the same impact player. Levy brings aggression, power, a real kind of anger as well at times. He's very physical. So I think Van der Fleer gives massive... That's not saying that he's not aggressive, Van der Fleer, because I think to get the amount of turnovers and the impact tackles he puts in, he's very, very aggressive. But Levy probably brings that impact off the bench. So
Levy's only 23 as well.
Yeah, they're very young, and they're great players to have with someone like Sean O'Brien out. Yeah.
What do you expect from Stockdale in a match like this? Because obviously is he keeping Larmour and Conway out of the team, or is Rob Kearney keeping Larmour and Conway out of the team? Like, does Joe see Larmour at Ireland at this point as a winger, do you think, or do we know?
We don't know yet, really, because there is a bit of safety in net there, and with that experience with Rob Kearney, I think he's played really well this year, and he's delivered before. And Larmour, there's just unbelievable excitement about him. It's very, very quick, so unless your kind of hand is forced, there's a bit of patience there, and there's a little bit of time in this. Stockdale was outstanding. I think it's 4 tests, 4 tries, so that's a good return. It's like a striker in soccer, isn't it?
Yeah. He's got a bit of niggle in him too.
And he's big. He's big. He's powerful and quick. And since November, obviously, Ulster have been up and down a little bit, so it's been tricky for him. But again, he delivered in November, and Joe likes players who deliver for him, which is completely understandable. So I don't think there's any need to propel Larmour in there. Larmour could be involved against Italy.
Yeah.
He's been picked, so I think he'll have some involvement. But I think that back three probably understand that they've got to play well. They've got to deliver. They've got to chase everything that's kicked downfield from Conor Murray. They've got to put in their tackles because you've Conway, Larmour, McFadden playing so well. And breathing down their neck.
I can't shake the feeling that if Joe Schmidt had to pick his team today, gun against his head for the World Cup, for the Scotland game, he'd be like, this is my back three. He'd be delighted if this was his back three.
Of Carney, Stockdale and Earls.
In the World Cup.
Yeah.
Everybody fit.
Everybody fit, yeah, of course, because you have unbelievable experience in Carney at full-back, and he talks a lot. His positional sense is good. Maybe the one weakness is hitting that line, scoring tries, getting a return, but do you give up some of the other stuff which he's outstanding at? And
I'd say he thinks he's got that now with Stockdale and Earls if they're both fit.
Yeah, he has. And but look, Larmour could get a chance and be outstanding, and he could play against Scotland or Wales as well. So I think it's a good position. The one that sticks out for me is the midfield, where at times we've been a little bit bare in midfield on occasions. If you get an injury or two, go to the World Cup when Luke Fitzgerald has had to be put in there. You're putting wingers into the centre. Tommy Bowe's gone in there a few times. You've a fair bit of depth there now, and you've a fair bit of power in Henshaw and Aki. Chris Farrell as an option to come in, very strong physically. He's played well with Munster, and then Ringrose hopefully get back at some stage during the Six Nations. So you've 4 top quality guys in the centre as well.
It just strikes me as an unbelievable blend of youth and experience. Just even seeing the likes of Sean Cronin and Fergus McFadden back around the squad with this sort of, I don't know, renaissance in their career. I'm not sure is it fair to say that, because they haven't exactly dipped to the point where this is a huge comeback. There's
nothing better, believe me, than someone who's frustrated, angry, peed off a little bit that they're being written off, because that shows kind of true character. And they're 2 great stories, because you know, and players who've delivered before, to get them back, you know, with an angry kind of reaction and showing their quality, and showing that maybe, look, they've got to change something in training, they've got to get a bit fitter, they've got to, you know, make more sacrifice. The young guns are coming to push them aside, and you love that reaction. And when you have guys then that you can put that experience on the bench, it's brilliant for the team.
One last point, which I wanted to talk. Les Kiss gets fired in the middle of a massive news cycle for Ulster Rugby and a massive news cycle for rugby generally in the week of the Six Nations. Not the classiest move, I have to. I feel, by Ulster Rugby at this point. Like, let him see out the season, come to an arrangement. What difference does it make?
Yeah, it's not a surprise, but I think the timing of it could have been a lot better. The week of the French game, 2 days before you're going to play a test over there. The pressure that's been on him is phenomenal. I'd say he's probably happy in some ways just to get away from it, because it can become very toxic when you're under that sort of pressure. The issue I have with it is John O'Gibbs and Dwayne Peel. You know, they get and this is, like it or not, it's the same. Whereas assistant manager takes over in football teams, there's been very little scrutiny of what they're trying to do, because I think the Ulster forwards this year have been poor on many occasions. Some days they've kind of got it right, and that's given a bit of a hope that it will get better, but they haven't played well, and the 4th year in a row they've missed out in Europe. And I think for a team the size of Ulster and with their ambition, and it goes back to what Shane Logan, their CEO, said in 2010, we want to be the best in the world, best club side in the world.
He really backed that up, didn't he?
Well,
like, come on.
It's not been good. And I think he certainly has to come out and address the Ulster fans, and maybe his position could become untenable, because he's been steering the ship really, and I think they've made one mistake after another, and they just haven't delivered. So I feel for Les, because such a decent bloke. But sometimes you can get into that situation where there's a bit of negativity and it just grows, and ultimately the players haven't delivered for him, so they've got to have a look at that as well. But sometimes a different voice can change things, so we'll have to wait and see. Yeah,
wish Les obviously the best of luck at any dealings you've ever had with him. He's come across
he's been outstanding, and
a really good person.
Really good fella.
Yeah.
Hey, hope you enjoyed that latest offering from Off the Ball. If you want to subscribe, and you should, check out just up here. All our latest stuff is just down here. Generally, knock yourself out.